Well, let's reflect on the Cuban Missile Crisis. Anybody over the age of 60 should be pretty much aware of what went on at the time. I'm 61 and I vividly remember what we went through, what our family went through during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And this more or less took place in October 14th to the 28th, the 13-day period in 1962. And this is back in the days where the Red Communist Scare was really on everybody's mind. Everybody was worried about it. It was even after Eisenhower warning us about the industrial military complex, which I guess nobody paid any attention to because Vietnam War was kicking into gear. But the Cuban Missile Crisis was something that actually scared us as kids and our family, because what we did is my dad went out and got these military containers. They were green, mil-spec letter writing on the side with mil-spec numbers with airtight, watertight lids on them. We got these ammo boxes with the same type of setup, mil-spec type boxes with government numbers on them. And we filled them up full of dry goods, dehydrated goods, canned bacon that I remember that we used to get at Fedco. And let me reflect on Fedco. Fedco was a place where we shopped, Federal Employee Discount Company, where you could buy stuff really cheap. And so when all this crap hit the fan, we went out to Fedco. It was in Van Nuys, right near the Chevrolet assembly plant, the GM assembly plant, in between Van Nuys Boulevard and Sepulveda. And I remember vividly how we went in there and there was just like a madhouse inside, people panicking. The shelves were so empty. I've never seen a gigantic store with empty shelves and people loading up their baskets, hoarding stuff. A few arguments broke out. My dad and my stepmother at the time were running around trying to get things, and we were kind of guarding the baskets. And I remember people coming up and taking things out of our basket, but us being kids, you know, and what was I, 6, 7 years old? You know, what was I going to do to somebody that was taking stuff out of our basket that we were trying to get together? But I remember this pen, flashlight, batteries, white gas, the Coleman gas for the camping stove, ammunition, because they sold guns and ammunition there. I vividly remember that counter there at Fedco and Van Nuys. Amazing thing to witness as a kid, because the air was thick, the atmosphere was tense, and I picked that up as a kid. So these are just one aspect of a vivid memory. And then getting a camper shell, a truck and camper setup, setting up, storing all of these cans, these dry goods, foods, and water and airtight containers, sticking them under there. And we had them under there for months and months and months, probably years. Even though the actual crisis was a 2-week scare routine, you always wanted to be prepared as a prepper in case the nuclear threat. Now what I don't get is today, with all the NATO movement going on, all the military maneuvers going on, why isn't anybody freaking out like they did in 1962? What's wrong with anybody and everybody? Don't they understand that this is a hell of a lot more critical than what took place back in 1962? This is a hell of a lot more serious. There's tens of thousands of more nuclear warheads aimed at the United States and every major point around the world. Why aren't we doing anything about it? Oh, but the rich are. They got their shelters done. They built theirs. All the billionaires moved out of Israel, and a lot of the rich millionaires are relocating down to New Zealand. Why New Zealand? I don't know. Maybe they think the radiation ain't going to get down that far. But Australia is a big target because they're part of NATO. They're bombing in Syria. They were involved in Iraq. They had a few floats over there. their Navy. So these are two little aspects. Also during this time, there was a movie out called Panic in the Year Zero with Ray Millard and his B-rated movies, actor, director, writer, the whole bit. And we saw that as a family, and that put the fear in us too. What this family had to go through to survive after a major bomb attack, which I believe it was smelly at the time. Because LA is a major target. San Diego, San Francisco are major West Coast targets just because they guard the Pacific. They are the guardians of the Pacific. San Diego being the whole South Pacific. So they got a pretty big area of coverage. But there was a lot of these movies out there. I'll put a link in there about that movie. It's on YouTube. Also a Twilight Zone series called The Shelter. You like Twilight Zone. Remember Twilight Zone, you old fogies out there, you baby boomers? There's a Twilight series. I'll put a link in the description too. It's on Netflix, so you can catch it on Netflix if you subscribe to Netflix. Called The Shelter, about a guy who built the shelter and everybody ignored him. They made fun of him. He says, you guys are out having parties and block parties, and I was down here spending a few hours a week building this shelter. So the conclusion of it was that there was a false nuclear attack, but everybody didn't know that, so they tried breaking the door down to this guy's ship. Great little episode. Watch it because this is stuff that can be coming. Also the show called Jericho and Revolution are two TV series that depict what could easily happen. I just did a video about the depopulation. Diagel.com says that there's going to be an 87% drop in the population in the United States and pretty much all the NATO countries. So this is what I don't understand. The fear that we went through in the early 60s was a lot less threatening than what the heck we got going on now with the United States blaming, pointing the finger at the Russia. I also did a video how a dog smells his own fart first, because it's just like the United States pointing the finger and blaming when the United States is the culprit and the cause of all these problems. So there is all this stuff going on. Now today, like I just don't understand why people aren't getting involved with this. They must be really dumbified and spooked out with the fluoride, the poisons in the food, the dumbing down of America through so many means, the re-education, and people just don't see. You know, even in World War II, how we rustled up all of the Japanese and put them in concentration camps. And folks, doggone it, this is the same thing's going to happen. And they even have people like Christians and ex-veterans and political dissidents marked and labeled to be put into these FEMA concentration camp. And we got Jade Helm exercising going on. Come on, people, wake the F up. I'm getting so tired of telling you. There's so many people, alternative media, telling you what's going on, and everybody's just turning their back to this situation. And I remember the air raid signals, the drop drills we had to do in school, in our neighborhood, in our school. It was every last Friday at 10 o'clock, the sirens went off. You can set your clock to it, your watch to it, whatever. It was something everybody knew was going to happen, and it was a practice tone. Although we didn't actually do our drop drills then at that time, but every month we had to perform our drop drills with tuck, duck, and cover. Little kids, you don't think that puts fears in them? Although there was a bunch of snickering going on and giggling going on, the teacher would be upset and yell at the kids who were making unsolicited noises while there was supposed to be a serious situation, with your backs to the glass in case that got shot out. And I remember as a kid that actual bright yellow siren there on the corner of Foothill and Van Nuys. Every time you pass it, you always looked up and wonder if it's going to go off at any given moment, or as you're passing, or in the middle of the night. Seeing all this stuff on TV, seeing these movies, seeing the news, doing a drop deal in school, what do you think how that affected the kids, this baby boomers? Well, absolutely nothing, because you're all a bunch of freaking stupid idiots, because nobody's doing anything about it. How can you be so ignorant to this, that today more than ever this threat is so real? All it's going to take is one false flag. Of course, the United States is real famous for false flags, and they're so involved in Gladio and all this crap going on in Europe. They're very famous for that, even the Mossad. All it's going to take is one silly, stupid false flag or some stupid idiot pushing a button at an inappropriate time to get this chain reaction going. Well, I guess that's why I moved to Costa Rica. That no one gives a crap. It's unbelievable. Anyway, all I can tell you is Pura Vida from Costa Rica. I'm Dr. Mano, broadcasting from Costa Rica, my reflection of the Cuban Missile Crisis, what we lived through as kids in the early 60s.